The abandoned mining station on Kepler 442c groaned under the weight of its own decay. Rust-colored dust swirled through broken corridors where emergency lights flickered like dying stars. In the deepest section of the facility, something small and desperate fought against the darkness that threatened to claim it. Zara pressed her furry body against the cold metal wall, her forearms wrapped protectively around her injured torso. The Zinari's cat-like features were twisted in pain, her large golden eyes clouded with fever. Purple blood seeped through her silver fur, staining the floor beneath her. She had been hiding in this forgotten corner for 3 days now, ever since the Korthak raiders had attacked her research vessel. The memory played in her mind like a nightmare. Her team of xenobiologists had been studying the unique crystal formations on this dead world when the pirates struck. The Korthaks were known throughout the galaxy for their brutality, taking what they wanted and leaving nothing but corpses behind. Zara had watched helplessly as her colleagues were cut down, their screams echoing through the ship's corridors. She had managed to escape in a damaged shuttle, crash landing near the old mining station, but not before taking a plasma bolt to her side. Now infection was setting in. Her people, the Zinari, were known for their advanced medical knowledge and their ability to heal quickly. But this wound was beyond her capabilities to treat alone. The plasma had burned deep, damaging organs that even her species' remarkable regenerative abilities couldn't repair without proper medical intervention. She could feel her strength ebbing with each passing hour. Zara's sensitive ears picked up the distant sound of engines approaching. Her heart raced as she listened, trying to determine if these were more raiders or perhaps a rescue team. The sound grew closer, and she could hear the heavy footsteps of someone moving through the station. Multiple someones. Judging by the rhythm, Sector 7 clear, a gruff voice called out in Galactic Standard. Moving to Sector 8. Copy that, Martinez. Keep your eyes open. Intel says the Korthaks might have left stragglers behind. Another voice responded. Zara's translator implant processed the words, but something about the accent was unfamiliar. These weren't Korthaks, but they weren't any species she recognized either. The footsteps were getting closer, and she found herself trapped between hope and terror. If these were slavers or bounty hunters, her situation would only get worse. But if they were legitimate salvagers or military personnel, they might be her only chance at survival. The pain in her side flared again, causing her to let out an involuntary whimper. She clamped her hands over her mouth, but it was too late. The footsteps stopped. "Did you hear that?" one of the voices asked. "Yeah." Sounded like it came from up ahead. Could be an injured survivor. Zara heard the distinctive sound of weapons being readied. She pressed herself further into the shadows, her breathing shallow and rapid. Her vision was starting to blur from blood loss, but she could make out the glow of tactical lights approaching her hiding spot. The first figure around the corner was unlike anything Zara had ever seen. Tall and bipedal, with pale skin visible beneath armor that bore no insignia she recognized. The being's face was angular, with small eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. When those eyes found her huddled form, they widened slightly. "Jesus Christ," the being muttered, lowering his weapon. "Martinez, get Doc over here. We've got a wounded civilian." More figures appeared, all of the same species, humans. Zara realized with a start. She had heard stories about them. The newest species to achieve spaceflight, most civilized worlds considered them primitive warmongers, barely evolved beyond their planet-bound ancestors. But as she looked up at the human who had found her, she saw something unexpected in his eyes. Compassion. "Easy there, little one," the human said, his voice gentle despite his intimidating appearance. "We're not going to hurt you. We're with the Human Colonial Defense Force. I'm Sergeant Chen, and we're here to help." Zara tried to speak, but only managed a weak mule. The infection was making it hard to think clearly, and the translator implant was struggling to keep up with her deteriorating condition. She could feel herself slipping in and out of consciousness. Another human appeared, this one carrying a large medical kit. Unlike the others, this human seemed smaller, more focused. There was something different about the way he moved, purposeful and precise. His armor bore a Red Cross symbol that Zara's cultural database identified as a medical marker. "What do we have, Chen?" the medic asked, dropping to his knees beside Zara. "Unknown species. Looks feline in nature. Plasma wound to the torso. Severe blood loss. Been here for days, I'd guess." The medic's hands moved with practiced efficiency, pulling out scanning devices that Zara didn't recognize. The technology looked crude compared to what her people used, but there was something reassuring about the medic's confidence. "Okay, sweetheart," the medic said, his voice calm and steady. "My name is Corporal Jackson, but you can call me Doc. I'm going to take a look at your wound, okay? I know it hurts, but I need to see what we're dealing with." Zara found herself trusting this strange human despite everything she had been taught about their species. There was something in his voice, a warmth that transcended language barriers. She managed a small nod, gritting her teeth as he gently moved her arms away from her injured side. Jackson's expression grew serious as he examined the wound. The plasma burn had created a hole nearly the size of his fist, and the edges were already showing signs of severe infection. In his years as a combat medic, he had seen similar wounds prove fatal even with proper medical facilities available. Out here, with only field equipment, the prognosis was grim, but as he looked down at the small alien's trusting eyes, something stirred in Jackson's chest. This wasn't just another casualty report. This was someone's daughter, sister, friend, someone who had been alone and terrified, fighting for survival in this godforsaken place. "How bad is it, Doc?" Chen asked quietly. Jackson met his sergeant's eyes. "Bad. Real bad. The infection is spreading, and she's lost a lot of blood. If we don't act fast, we're going to lose her. Can you stabilize her for transport?" "Maybe. But she needs surgery and she needs it now. This wound is way beyond anything I can handle with field dressings." Chen was quiet for a moment, considering their options. Their mission was to secure the mining station and eliminate any remaining Korthak presence. They weren't equipped for a major medical emergency, and their ship didn't have the facilities to treat an alien physiology they knew nothing about. "There's a human medical frigate about 6 hours away," Martinez called from his position by the corridor entrance. "The Mercy. They've got a full surgical suite. 6 hours might as well be 6 days for her," Jackson replied, continuing to work on Zara's wound. "She'll be dead long before we can get her there." Zara listened to their conversation with growing despair. Even through her fever-induced delirium, she understood that her situation was hopeless. These humans were willing to help, but they simply didn't have the resources to save her. She closed her eyes, preparing to accept the inevitable, but Jackson wasn't ready to give up. As he looked down at the wounded Zanari, memories flooded back of his training, his oath as a medic, and the countless lives he had saved over the years. He had never treated an alien before, but anatomy was anatomy, and medicine was medicine. The basics remained the same across species. "Chen, I need you to clear a space and set up our portable surgical unit," Jackson said, his voice taking on a determined edge. "Martinez, get me every medical supply we have on the transport, and someone get me a direct comm link to Dr. Sarah Kim on the Mercy. If I'm going to attempt this, I need expert consultation." "Doc, are you sure about this?" Chen asked. "You've never operated on an alien before." "Hell, nobody has. We don't know anything about her physiology." Jackson was already pulling out his surgical instruments, checking each one carefully. "Then I guess we're about to learn, because I'm not letting her die on my watch." As the humans scrambled to prepare for emergency surgery, Zara felt a spark of hope ignite in her chest. These beings, these supposedly primitive humans, were willing to risk everything to save her life. Perhaps there was more to their species than the galaxy gave them credit for. The surgery. The portable surgical unit hummed to life in the abandoned mining station's main corridor, its sterile lights cutting through the perpetual gloom. Jackson had never imagined he would be performing emergency surgery in such conditions, let alone on an alien whose anatomy he could only guess at. But as he looked down at Zara's increasingly pale form, he pushed his doubts aside and focused on what he knew how to do best. "Save lives. Dr. Kim, are you receiving the bioscan data?" Jackson spoke into his headset while continuing to prepare his instruments. The communication delay with the medical frigate, Mercy, was nearly 30 seconds, making real-time consultation difficult. But any expert advice was better than none. "I'm looking at it now, Corporal," came the reply from the ship's chief medical officer. "This is unprecedented. The physiology appears to be a hybrid of feline and primate characteristics, but with some completely unique organ structures. That secondary heart you're seeing on the scan is fascinating." Jackson nodded grimly. The bioscanner had revealed that Zara's people possessed a dual circulatory system, with a primary heart that functioned much like a human's, and a smaller secondary heart that seemed to regulate blood flow to the extremities. Both hearts were currently struggling, and the secondary one was showing signs of failure due to the systemic infection. "Doc, her blood pressure is dropping fast," Martinez reported from the monitoring station they had hastily assembled. The human soldier had no medical training, but he could read the basic vital signs that Jackson had taught him to watch. "I see it," Jackson replied, injecting Zara with a broad-spectrum antibiotic that he hoped would be compatible with her alien biology. "Dr. Kim, I'm going to have to start the procedure now. Her condition is deteriorating too rapidly to wait for more analysis." "Understood, Corporal. I'll guide you through this as best I can, but you're going to have to trust your instincts. The basic principles of trauma surgery should still apply." Zara drifted in and out of consciousness as Jackson worked. Through her fever-induced haze, she could feel the human's hands moving with surprising gentleness as he cleaned and examined her wound. The pain was excruciating, but there was something oddly comforting about his presence. Despite being a member of a species she had been taught to fear, this human radiated a determination to help that transcended any language barrier. "Okay, sweetheart," Jackson murmured as he prepared to make his first incision. "I need you to stay with me. I know this hurts, but I'm going to fix you up." The plasma wound had created a complex pattern of damage that challenged everything Jackson thought he knew about surgical repair. The alien's internal organs were arranged differently than human anatomy, with several structures that served unknown functions, but the basics were recognizable. Torn blood vessels that needed repair, damaged tissue that had to be removed, and signs of internal bleeding that required immediate attention. As Jackson worked, his team provided support in ways that went far beyond their military training. Chen had taken over the role of surgical assistant, passing instruments and helping to maintain the sterile field despite the challenging conditions. Martinez monitored Zara's vital signs and maintained communication with the Mercy, relaying Jackson's observations to Dr. Kim for analysis. Even the other squad members had formed a protective perimeter around the makeshift operating room, ensuring that nothing would interrupt the delicate procedure. "There's significant damage to what appears to be her primary liver," Jackson reported, carefully probing the wounded organ. "It's much larger than a human liver, and it seems to have a different structure. Dr. Kim, I'm seeing what looks like multiple chambers connected by small vessels. That matches what we're seeing in the bioscan analysis." Dr. Kim's voice crackled through the comm. "The Zenari physiology appears to have evolved redundant systems for critical functions. If you can repair the major damage and stop the bleeding, that organ should be able to regenerate over time." Jackson nodded, focusing on the immediate threats to Zara's life. The internal bleeding was severe, and several blood vessels had been completely severed by the plasma blast. Using techniques he had perfected during years of battlefield medicine, he began the painstaking process of repair. What should have been a routine procedure became an exercise in medical improvisation. Zara's blood chemistry was different enough from human norms that standard medications had unpredictable effects. Her cardiovascular system responded differently to the synthetic blood substitutes in Jackson's medical kit. Even her pain responses seemed to follow different patterns than what he was used to, but Jackson adapted, drawing on every bit of training and experience he possessed. When standard sutures proved incompatible with Zenari tissue, he improvised with biocompatible adhesives. When her blood pressure crashed due to medication interactions, he adjusted dosages based on real-time feedback from her vital signs. Each challenge was met with determination and creative problem-solving that gradually began to turn the tide. "Her secondary heart is stabilizing," Martinez reported, a note of amazement in his voice. "Blood pressure is coming back up." "Good," Jackson replied, not looking up from his work. "But we're not out of the woods yet. I still need to repair the damage to her respiratory system." The plasma blast had punctured one of Zara's lungs, creating a life-threatening injury that was complicated by her species' unique respiratory anatomy. Unlike humans, the Zenari possessed a series of smaller air sacs that worked in conjunction with their primary lungs, allowing them to extract oxygen more efficiently from thin atmospheres. Several of these air sacs had been damaged, creating internal bleeding that threatened to drown her in her own blood. "This is delicate work," Jackson muttered, carefully sealing the damaged air sacs with surgical patches. "One wrong move and I could make things worse." "You're doing fine, Doc," Chen said quietly. Just take it one step at a time. Hours passed as Jackson worked to repair the extensive damage. The abandoned mining station around them seemed to fade away as the surgical team focused entirely on their patient. Despite the primitive conditions and the complete lack of knowledge about Zanari physiology, something remarkable was happening. Through sheer determination and medical skill, a human combat medic was saving the life of an alien who should have died hours ago. As the surgery progressed, Zara began to regain periods of lucid consciousness. Through the haze of pain and medication, she watched the human called Jackson work with an intensity and dedication that defied everything she thought she knew about his species. His movements were precise and careful, his focus absolute. There was no hesitation in his actions, no doubt about his commitment to saving her life. Why? She managed to whisper during one of her conscious moments, her translator finally catching up with her improved condition. Why are you helping me? Jackson looked up from his work, meeting her golden eyes with his own. There was something profound in that moment of connection, a bridge of understanding that crossed the vast gulf between their species. Because it's the right thing to do, he said simply. Then returned to his work. Those words echoed in Zara's mind as she slipped back into unconsciousness. In her dreams, she saw images of her homeworld, of the research that had brought her to this distant planet, and of the friends she had lost to the Korthak raiders. But alongside those dark memories came something new. The image of a human medic who had risked everything to save the life of someone he had never met. Plasma vessel repair complete, Jackson announced as he finished the last of the major surgical work. Internal bleeding has stopped, and all damaged organs have been stabilized. Dr. Kim, I'm ready to close. Outstanding work, Corporal, came the reply from the Mercy. Her vital signs are showing steady improvement. You may have just made medical history. As Jackson began to close Zara's surgical wounds, he felt a profound sense of accomplishment. This wasn't just about completing a successful surgery under impossible conditions. This was about proving that medicine truly was a universal language, and that the desire to heal transcended any barriers of species or culture. How long before she's stable enough for transport? Chen asked as the team began to pack up their equipment. Jackson checked Zara's vital signs one more time. Her breathing was steady. Her heart rates were strong, and the infection that had nearly killed her was responding to treatment. Give her another few hours to stabilize, then we can move her to the Mercy for proper recovery. As Zara slept peacefully under the watchful eyes of her unlikely saviors, something fundamental had changed in the abandoned mining station. A human combat medic had performed a miracle of improvised medicine, saving the life of an alien who represented everything his species was supposed to fear or distrust. In doing so, he had planted the seeds of something that would grow far beyond this forgotten corner of the galaxy. Proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their technology, but their unwavering commitment to doing what was right. Number the ripple effect. 6 months after the incident at the mining station, Zara stood before the Galactic Medical Council on the neutral station of Harmony Point. The council chamber was a magnificent structure, its crystalline walls refracting light from dozens of different star systems to create a rainbow of colors that represented the diversity of galactic civilization. Representatives from over 50 species sat in the tiered seating, their attention focused on the small Zanari who had requested this unprecedented session. Zara's silver fur had regained its lustrous shine, and the surgical scars from her ordeal were barely visible thanks to her species' remarkable healing abilities. But the real change in her was deeper than the physical. Where once she had harbored the typical galactic prejudices against humanity, she now carried a profound respect for what she had witnessed in that abandoned mining station. Honored council members, Zara began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. I appear before you today to present evidence that will fundamentally change how we view the newest members of our galactic community. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Galactic Medical Council had been debating humanity's application for advanced medical certification for months, with most members arguing that the species was too primitive and aggressive to be trusted with advanced healing technologies. The humans' military-focused culture and their tendency toward violence had made them pariahs in many scientific circles. Counselor Vexhai, a tall, crystalline being from the Andromeda system, spoke for the opposition. Honored Zara, while we respect your ordeal and are grateful for your recovery, we must question whether a single incident involving human military personnel can truly represent their entire species' medical capabilities. With respect, Counselor, Zara replied, I believe you misunderstand what I witnessed. This was not simply about medical capabilities. This was about something far more profound. She activated the holographic display that she had spent months preparing. Three-dimensional images filled the center of the chamber, showing detailed medical scans, surgical procedures, and biological analyses that told the story of her rescue and recovery. When Corporal Jackson found me in that mining station, I was dying, Zara continued. The plasma wound had created massive internal damage, systemic infection, and multiple organ failure. By all reasonable medical standards, I should not have survived another hour. The holographic display showed the extent of Zara's injuries, causing several council members to shift uncomfortably in their seats. The damage was indeed catastrophic, far beyond what most field medics would even attempt to treat. Yet this human, with equipment that many of us would consider primitive, performed a surgical procedure that saved my life, Zara said. But more importantly, he did so without any knowledge of Zenari physiology, without proper surgical facilities, and without any hope of personal gain or reward. Dr. Thymel, a respected surgeon from the Centauri Medical Institute, leaned forward with interest. The surgical techniques shown in these recordings are crude by our standards, but undeniably effective. How do you explain this? Zara smiled, remembering Jackson's steady hands and determined expression during those critical hours. Because Corporal Jackson understood something that I believe many of us have forgotten. Medicine is not about having the most advanced technology or the most complete knowledge base. It is about the will to heal, the determination to save life regardless of the obstacles. She paused, allowing her words to sink in before continuing. During my recovery aboard the human medical frigate, Mercy, I had the opportunity to observe their medical practices extensively. What I discovered challenged every assumption I had about their species. The holographic display shifted to show scenes from the Mercy's medical bay. Human doctors and nurses worked alongside the few alien medical professionals who had agreed to serve on integrated crews. The humans' approach to medicine was indeed different from galactic norms, but the results spoke for themselves. Human medicine is based on a philosophy that they call, do no harm, Zara explained. But they take this principle further than any species I have encountered. They believe that every life has value, regardless of species, social status, or political affiliation. During my stay on the Mercy, I watched human medics treat Korthak pirates with the same dedication they showed to their own wounded soldiers. This statement caused an uproar in the council chamber. The Korthaks were universally despised as violent raiders and slavers. The idea that any civilized species would waste medical resources on such beings was almost incomprehensible to most galactic citizens. Surely you don't suggest we should emulate such wasteful practices, Councillor Vexhai protested. Medical resources are precious, and they should be allocated to those who contribute positively to galactic society. And that, Zara said firmly, is precisely the mindset that humanity challenges. They don't see medical care as a privilege to be earned, but as a right to be protected. When Corporal Jackson saved my life, he didn't know who I was, what my social standing might be, or whether I posed any threat to his people. He saw a wounded being in need of help, and he acted. The display shifted again, showing statistical analyses that Zara had compiled during her research. Since humans began integrating into galactic medical facilities 6 months ago, patient survival rates have improved by an average of 12% across all species. Their innovative surgical techniques, combined with their refusal to abandon difficult cases, has led to breakthrough treatments for conditions that were previously considered terminal. Dr. Thymel studied the data with growing amazement. These statistics are remarkable. How do they achieve such results with their limited technology? Because they never give up, Zara replied. Human medics are trained to fight for every life, no matter how hopeless the situation appears. When conventional treatments fail, they improvise. When standard procedures prove inadequate, they adapt. When faced with unknown alien physiologies, they learn. She thought back to those terrifying hours in the mining station, when Jackson had worked tirelessly to understand her alien biology through trial and error, never once considering the possibility of simply letting her die. In many ways, their supposed primitiveness is actually their greatest strength. They haven't learned to accept that some cases are hopeless. The council chamber fell silent as members contemplated Zara's words. Many had spent centuries believing that medical advancement came through better technology, and more complete knowledge. The idea that determination and compassion could be equally important was revolutionary. There is something else, Zara continued. Something that I believe represents humanity's true gift to galactic medicine. She activated a new section of her presentation, showing communications logs and medical reports from across human space. 3 weeks ago, a Valerian colony ship suffered a catastrophic life support failure. 47 species were represented among the passengers, many with incompatible environmental needs. The nearest human medical facility was 8 hours away. The display showed the dramatic rescue operation that had unfolded. Human medical ships had raced to intercept the failing colony vessel, while teams of doctors worked around the clock to develop emergency treatments for dozens of alien physiologies they had never encountered before. By the time the rescue was complete, human medics had successfully treated 23 different species, many for the first time in their medical history, Zara said. The survival rate was 94%, despite the fact that most of these beings had physiologies completely foreign to human understanding. How is such a thing possible? Dr. Thymel asked, clearly struggling to process the implications. Because humans approach medicine differently than we do, Zara explained. Where we see incompatible alien biologies, they see puzzles to be solved. Where we see hopeless cases, they see challenges to overcome. Where we see the limits of our knowledge, they see opportunities to learn. She paused, thinking of Jackson and the countless other human medics who had dedicated their lives to healing others. Most importantly, they have institutionalized something that many of our advanced civilizations have lost: the belief that no being should suffer or die simply because we don't know how to help them. The holographic display shifted to show the final element of Zara's presentation, a proposal for a revolutionary new approach to galactic medicine. I am here today to formally request that the Galactic Medical Council not only grant humanity full medical certification, but that we establish a new collaborative program to learn from their methods. Counselor Vexhai looked skeptical. What exactly are you proposing? I propose that we create integrated medical training programs where our most experienced doctors work alongside human medics to develop new approaches to emergency medicine, Zara said. I propose that we establish rapid response medical teams based on human models, designed to provide emergency care regardless of species compatibility. And most importantly, I propose that we adopt humanity's fundamental principle that medical care is a universal right, not a privilege. The council chamber erupted in debate as members argued the merits of Zara's proposals. Some saw the wisdom in learning from humanity's unconventional approaches, while others worried about abandoning tried and true methods that had served galactic civilization for millennia. Through it all, Zara stood calmly at the center of the storm, thinking about a human combat medic who had saved her life without expecting anything in return. Jackson had shown her that true medical advancement didn't come from better scanners or more sophisticated drugs, but from an unwavering commitment to the belief that every life was worth saving. Honored Council, Zara said when the debate finally quieted. 6 months ago, I was a xenobiologist who believed that humans were a primitive species with nothing to offer galactic civilization. Today, I am alive because one human medic proved that belief wrong. Perhaps it is time we all reconsidered what we think we know about the value of human compassion. As the council moved toward a vote on humanity's medical certification, Zara reflected on the profound changes that had begun with a single act of kindness in an abandoned mining station. Jackson had saved more than just her life that day. He had saved her faith in the possibility that different species could overcome their prejudices and work together for the common good. The final vote was closer than many had expected, but it was decisive. Humanity was granted full medical certification, along with an invitation to help reshape galactic medical practices based on their unique philosophy of universal care. As Zara left the council chamber, she carried with her a message that would be transmitted throughout human space. A simple thank you from one alien who had learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their technology, but their absolute refusal to let anyone suffer alone. In a galaxy often divided by fear and prejudice, humans had proven that compassion was indeed a universal language, and that the will to heal could bridge any gap between species. The ripple effect of one combat medic's dedication to his oath would continue to spread throughout the galaxy, changing hearts and minds one rescued life at a time. In the end, that was humanity's true gift to the stars. The revolutionary idea that every being, no matter how different or alien, deserved a chance to live.